Hi guys, good afternoon. This is Michelle Powell from Professional Manner. Thank you very much, those of you who are watching on replay. You may have stumbled across this channel, Professional Manner or at Pro Manner, because you were interested in the title, or maybe someone who's watching live clicked the share button and you found this later in the day. I want to thank you for joining the replay. This is Michelle Powell. Let me introduce myself properly to you. I am founder and CEO of Professional Manner, which is a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. Our focus is training and education on business etiquette, or etiquette for the workplace and your professional life. Thank you for joining Mr. Be Free. Our subject today is establishing healthy boundaries in the workplace. Because we all get into those gray areas and have those frustrating moments with our coworkers who put us in awkward situations or positions sometimes. And it's very important for you to maintain your own health and sense of being to establish healthy boundaries. And really, this is true anywhere and everywhere in your life, whether it's your personal life or your business life. But I'm going to address establishing those healthy boundaries in your workplace. Hi Natalie, thanks for joining. Let me also say this. Today is my 11th day on Periscope. I'm a newbie here, and as I said in an earlier broadcast, that I established a challenge for myself. Oh, thank you, superstar. I love that. I need that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I established a challenge for myself called the 12 for 12. And as I expressed in earlier broadcasts, what that means to me is that I'm pushing myself as a newbie on Periscope to do a scope every single day for the first 12 days. I'm getting all the kinks out, so thanks to all of you who have been there since the beginning, bearing with me as I'm trying to figure out this camera thing and all of that. So for 12 consecutive days, I've been broadcasting, or actually 11. Tomorrow is the 12th day. And during that time, I'm asking for those of you who are interested in this subject of business etiquette to please tap the screen and give hearts. I'm looking for 12,000 hearts in my first 12 days. And I need to go back and check my counter because it seems like it's off. And if anybody knows about analytics for Periscope, please send me a note on Twitter and let me know how to figure that out, because I'm seeing numbers that don't look consistent. In fact, I had one person one day that sent me, I think, over 1,000 hearts, and it showed up as only 110 or something. I don't know. But that's a sidebar. So again, if you're just joining, I'm Michelle Powell with Professional Manner. I'm new to Periscope, but certainly not new to the subject of business etiquette. I've been doing this for 13 years as a public speaker, a trainer, facilitator, and also a writer. I have a regular column that I write for the Alabama Media Group, and in fact I've been on sabbatical for just a little time, but you can find me in the archives in the business section of al.com. That's for Alabama, www.al.com, and just search for Michelle Powell. If they don't log out after 500 hearts and log back in, it won't count. Oh, very interesting. Thanks, Natalie. I appreciate that. Okay, so let me also tell you, not just that I'm asking for the hearts just because it feels good, but I also want to give you something. I have a special treat that I'm going to announce tomorrow to my top 3 heart givers. So if you're tapping that screen and giving hearts, I'm tallying those. And for the top 3 people who give the most hearts, I have a special gift for you tomorrow. And I'm going to announce that tomorrow. I'm also going to do something very out of the norm for me and very quirky. One of the things that I also talk about when I present the subject of professional image is, while it is important to maintain, hi Ken, and I saw Bright Radio joined, and you guys are on the road, aren't you? I think I watched your accidental scope earlier that you're on the road to Dove Awards, so shout out to Bright Radio. Where was I? This is fun because you interact with people, but then you can get so sidetracked. Oh, I was talking about the 12 for 12. Tomorrow I'm going to make 2 announcements. The first one is the contest winners, those who give the most hearts. the top 3 people, I have a special gift for you. And then the other thing is just something fun I'm going to share. That was my point, is not to take yourself so seriously. Even though, yes, we all need to maintain a professional image, don't take yourself too seriously that you can't laugh at yourself. So I'm going to do something tomorrow and I'm going to really be laughing at myself, and I'm going to invite you to do the same thing. It's all in fun. It's a part of my 12 for 12 challenge. All right, enough of that. Those of you who are tuning in at 2 p.m. Eastern, maybe you're taking a late lunch. It's Marty and the Brain. Hi, guys. All right. So my subject today is establishing healthy boundaries in the workplace. We all need them. We all need them. So I'm going to dig into 5 things. Now, there are more boundaries that you need to have, but I'm going to talk about just 5 of them here. And then before I close, I'm going to give you additional resources that you can look up. Okay, so let's dig in. Healthy boundaries in the workplace. If you're just joining, I'm Michelle Powell with Professional Manner, Business Etiquette Consultant, and our subject today is boundaries at work. So, number 1, in order to maintain healthy boundaries with your coworkers and upper management, you need to not share too much. Don't share too much. Last night, I gave a promo for this session, and I talked about the Johari window. If you're not familiar, I'll give you a quick recap. The Johari window is a tool that was developed by 2 psychologists early in the 1900s to help you understand and identify things about yourself and your relationship to other people, how well they know you and how well you know yourself. So in this window, there are 4 panes, if you will. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the first one is the open arena. This is the area where you know things about yourself and other people know those things about you as well. That's what we present to the public. Okay, that's what we know about ourselves, and other people know these things about us as well. Maybe it can be folks in your intimate circle know these things about you. The next window is the blind spot. That's where other people know things about you, but you don't know about yourself. Then the third window is the closet. This is where you know things about yourself, but you choose when you share those things. You decide when to share. And this is the area that I'm talking about, not sharing too much, because you have the option of doing that. You know these things about yourself. You don't necessarily have to talk about them, but at different times you disclose certain things about yourself. And then the last window, or the last frame in the Johari window, is the dark area. That's the area of the unknown. Things about yourself that are not known to you or to other people. Okay, so let's go back to that closet, all right? And we start digging things out and we take them to work. And you talk too much. When you talk too much about yourself, your personal life, you give people ammunition to come back later and cause harm. Let me say it that way. Because sometimes people at work who are your friend, so you think, may later be opposed to you because of some decision that you made that they didn't like, or something else in the work environment causes them to be at odds with you. And now you've told them all this stuff about your relationship at home, or that you snuck away one time when you said you were sick and you were really on vacation. Yes, always a delicate balance. That's very true, Ken. You have to balance what you share in trying to be friendly and build camaraderie with sharing too much. Another example of sharing too much is not just about your relationships or complaining about your in-laws, but something, or the fact that you snuck away and had vacation rather than real sick days. That can really hurt you. But then also talking about maybe a surgery that you had, or you're thinking about buying a home, and all these sorts of things where people start evaluating what you're saying and giving it value and determining how they want to use that against you. You know, this can be very harmful. So just a quick note to wrap this section up, because I don't want to spend too much time on one particular thing. I just want to give you the overview and let you start thinking about these things. So the first thing, the first area where you need to establish boundaries is not sharing too much about yourself in the workplace. We all know the saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Very true here. Okay, so let's move on to number two. Number two, a place where you need to set healthy boundaries is when people ask you intrusive and rude questions. How many of you have had this experience? Just tap the screen right now to let me know. Yes, this has happened to me. People ask you rude, awkward, intrusive questions. How dare you ask me that? And you're standing there thinking, okay, do I respond to this? Do I ignore you? Do I tell you how rude you are right now? Let me share this with you, and I'm going to pull up some examples. I actually wrote an article about this in that business column on AL.com last year, and I pulled that up to give you some examples of those questions. How old are you? That's a good example. How old are you? Or are you pregnant? Oh, my. People ask those kinds of questions. Yes, and something that you need to remember about that is, first of all, you don't have to answer. You do not have to answer. If that question makes you feel uncomfortable, say so. I really don't feel comfortable with that question, or I really don't feel comfortable answering that. Okay, because one of the things that you need to understand is that ill-mannered people usually don't recognize that they have poor manners and that they're being offensive. So they could be overstepping their boundaries by asking rude questions. Is that your mom? No, it's my girlfriend. Right. Oh, my. Yeah, people say the strangest things. They kind of put their foot in their mouth, and you're trying to help them pull it out, but in the process, it makes things awkward and weird for you too. So let me give you a couple of questions, and you guys already know. You've given me a couple of examples. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Okay, here's one. How much did that cost? You're talking about something that you just bought. You're really excited about it. That might be an example of sharing too much, because then you're inviting those kinds of questions, right? How much did that cost? So how do you answer that? Here's one example of an answer. Well, that's not something I really want to share, or that doesn't really matter. The point is, I'm really happy with it. So you can be dismissive of that and just give a different comment that helps them move along, okay? You're not going to tell them how much you paid for that bag or that car or that new home. It's none of their business. Help them understand that it's none of their business, or you feel uncomfortable with answering that question. Here's another one on that same vein. How can you afford that? Oh, my. Isn't that a rude question? How can you afford that? So what they're saying, and remember, you're in the work setting. So they're trying to figure out, well, are you making that much more money than I am that you can buy this car, or you just bought a house, or whatever they're thinking. Oh, well, see, you just got that promotion and now you're doing all this stuff. And they make judgments, and then they start pulling away, and it changes the relationship. All sorts of things can come out of that. But it's their rude question, right? So how do you answer that? How can you afford that? Excuse me, how can you afford that? An answer could be, well, I manage my money well. Or you can use humor and say, well, last year my wife and I, we planted money trees, and leave it at that. Okay? You do not have to answer those awkward, rude, intrusive questions. That's the point I'm trying to drive home. You need to establish healthy boundaries. Help people with those boundaries. People will ask you anything. You don't have to answer. Okay? Here's another example. You just got engaged, and you're all excited, and you're showing your ring, or you show it to one person and they get excited and make a scene and want to walk you around holding your hand out for you to show the ring. Has that ever happened to you? And somebody says, wow, how many carats is that? They're trying to make a valuation here. So your best answer is, oh, it doesn't matter. It was enough for me to say yes. Ah! You know, that sort of thing. That's how you get out of that, okay? People are trying to figure out your status. You know, they want to know how much money you're making and that sort of thing. They don't need to know. All right, and let me give you one more, and somebody, I think, mentioned this already. We're talking about establishing healthy boundaries. If you're just joining, I'm Michelle Powell with Professional Manner. I'm a business etiquette consultant, and we're on number 2 of the healthy boundaries that you need to set in the workplace. We're talking about rude questions and how to answer them. Here's another rude question someone can ask you, whether at work or in your personal life. Let's see, Ken says, and also need to stop venting our personal problems at work. Absolutely. That's an example of sharing too much. Yes, indeed. So another rude question, point blank. Are you pregnant? Or you seem to be gaining weight. Are you pregnant? A quick answer is no. That's it. No, I'm not. I actually witnessed someone who was asked that question, embarrassingly enough. But what's really funny is that the gentleman who asked her that, he himself had a beer belly. And she just looked down at his stomach and she said, when he asked the question, are you pregnant? She looked at his stomach and said, no, I'm not, and walked away. Oh my, okay, so rude questions. All right, let's move on to the next one where you need to establish healthy boundaries. And that is on your personal time, which includes your lunch break. Don't let people come to you and flood you with work on your lunch break, and then you sit there and get resentful because, oh, you feel obligated to do the work. Well, it may be so. If it's deadline driven, then yes, you have to make that judgment call. You may have to take your lunch a little later or something. You may have to make an adjustment. But what I'm trying to help you understand is that if you set a course for yourself of working through your lunch break, you won't get lunch. You need to establish healthy boundaries here. So if your boss comes to you and says, oh, Michelle, I need you to work on this for me. Okay, great. Well, what's the deadline on this? Is this something that can wait till I get back from lunch? I was getting ready to step out. Let him know. And he may say, oh, because he doesn't realize he's keeping track of so many different things and not keeping track of you or anyone else. So he doesn't realize you're going to lunch. Or maybe it's his routine to work through lunch and he thinks everyone else should. So you have to say so. Oh, I was getting ready to step out for lunch. Is it something that can wait until I come back? And he may say, well, I really need you to do this now. You have to follow through on that. Or you say, well, what's the deadline on this? I tell you what, I can do this in about I can take care of this in about 15 minutes. Let me do that and then I'm going to step out. So you're telling him then, you're giving him 15 minutes of your time and then you're going to leave. Okay? Now there's a way to do that. You have to use diplomatic language. You can't be demanding when you're talking to the boss. Well, I've got lunch and I'm going now, and if I don't get out of here now, and all of that. That changes the tone altogether. What you're trying to establish here is that I deserve this break. I need to have this break. Okay? Because I know some of you out there turn into monsters if you don't eat on time. So help yourself here by helping other people understand this is your time. So just find out what the deadline is, try to accommodate as you can, but then take your lunch. Step out of the office, take that break. That helps you to establish the boundaries so that you're not sitting at your desk with a sandwich and people keep walking in and having conversation and loading work on you, and you're sitting there with papers piled around you trying to type with one hand and eat your sandwich with another. Don't do that to yourself, okay? All right, so number 4, this is a doozy. Another place where you need to establish. Marty and Katina, thanks for joining. Marty, you're on the road, right? But you're not driving, so I hope it's safe. Okay. The next thing that I'm talking about in establishing healthy boundaries in the workplace. If you're enjoying this right now, I would ask that you tap the screen and give hearts, and that you would also share this with someone else who, okay, the sound is low. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll talk a little louder, and my microphone is coming tomorrow. I just ordered a new microphone for this purpose. So thanks for letting me know. I'll talk a little louder, get a little closer. We're talking about establishing healthy boundaries in the workplace. If this is something that you think others would enjoy hearing, this is good content, then please swipe up on your Android or swipe left to right on your iOS and click the share button. If you're not following me already, I would ask that you click the follow button as well so that you can get notification on my other broadcasts, on future broadcasts. And before this one's over, I'll give you a teaser on some of the other subjects that I'll be addressing. All right, so we've talked about the boundaries of not sharing too much so that it doesn't come back to bite you, that you're not the victim of gossip because you've shared too much, or you're a victim of retaliation because you've shared too much, or just that it changes your level of credibility in the workplace or your professional image because you've talked about too many personal things or you complain too much. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we talked about rude questions. Oh, and by the way, watching from the car. Oh, you made it to Tennessee already. Very good. I know that Bright Radio is there. I don't know if you're covering or you're just there to be part of the audience for the Dove Awards. So fabulous. Wish I could be there with you. All right, so we're talking about healthy boundaries. The first one was not sharing too much. Number two is rude questions. If you want the entire list that I prepared and actually wrote in an article, then what you can do to get a copy of that article is to send me your request. You can do that by going on my website, which is professionalmanner.com, and then click the Contact Us button. There you can make your request and just ask for the article on rude questions. Oh, we are media coverage. Awesome, Marty. Awesome. I will check that out. All right, so if you're looking for tips on how to respond to rude questions, you can get that article from me. Go to my website, professionalmanner.com, click on the Contact Us button, and then make your request for rude questions, the rude questions article. All right, so that'll be some help. Let me also say this, for the questions that are not covered there, because there are a ton of them, the best advice I can give you is when you know that this happens on a regular basis from someone, prepare some answers, patent answers that you can use, like the one, the humorous one about, oh, my wife and I planted money trees. You know, if they're asking about your finances, you know, that's something that you can say to deflect and say, hey, let's move away from this. All right. Now, we're talking about healthy boundaries in the workplace. If you're just joining, I am Michelle Powell with Professional Manner, founder and CEO. This is a business etiquette consulting firm in Washington, D.C. If you are in the area, I'm going to actually broadcast from my office. I'm in my home office. I'm going to broadcast from my office in D.C. so that you can see the facilities. If you're interested in coming to one of our open training days, you can see where we are. I'll share that probably next week. I'll do that. All right, the next one. This is a heavy one. Establishing boundaries when it comes to sexual harassment. Now, let me say something before the men tune out. I actually had a young man who came to me after a workshop, and he shared with me that he was being harassed by his female boss, sexually harassed, and was looking for help on what to do. Now, we discussed his situation, and I determined that it was beyond my expertise, and I actually referred him. I gave him a little bit of advice just for immediate responses to certain things that were said to him, but then I gave him the name of someone who could help him professionally, actually an attorney. So one thing I would also say, suggest to you is that if you're in business for yourself and you're some kind of coach or trainer, that you make sure you stay in your own wheelhouse and you have a great Rolodex of other professionals so that you don't mislead someone on the advice you're able to give them. So I gave him the name of an attorney, which is what I determined he needed at that point. So let's talk about sexual harassment. It happens to men and women. Now, if this is happening to you, there are two different levels of response that you should have. And what I mean by that is depending on who that person is who is causing the affront. If it is a peer, there's one way to respond. If it is someone who is your immediate boss or in higher management, there's a different response that you need to have. All right, so let's talk about if it's a peer. And I'll use the typical scenario. You're a female and a gentleman that you work with is making sly remarks, or he's being suggestive in the things that he says or his body language. For example, you can say to a woman, oh, that's a nice dress you're wearing. Or, oh, you look really good in that dress. There's a difference there, and you know it. The first thing I would say to you ladies is nip it in the bud. Ladies and gentlemen, nip it in the bud. Don't let that continue. Don't be coy. Don't, kind of giggle or pretend like you're annoyed by it. Let him know this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So when they say something to you that is off-putting, then you say, I really don't appreciate that. That's offensive to me. Point blank, let them know. When someone is being that rude and intrusive and making you feel uncomfortable, you have to let them know. Don't let it fester, because what will happen is if you simply ignore him and walk away, or you smile, or you in some other way in your body language suggest, oh, maybe it bothers me, maybe it doesn't, he's going to keep trying, he's going to keep coming back. You have to let him know right then and there, I don't feel comfortable with that. How rude of you. That really makes me uncomfortable. That's very unprofessional. Whatever words you need to use to make it clear to that person, this is unacceptable. Now, if it continues to happen, then they're game playing. They're just trying to get your attention. And if it escalates, you may have to take action. You're going to have to threaten the action. If you've already told them once, this is unacceptable, I don't appreciate it, it makes me feel uncomfortable, this is unprofessional of you, whatever you need to say to stop that sexual harassment, you must do it early. Because if you don't, you're going to give invitation for more of that. Now, if it continues to happen even after you've made it clear, then you need to go back and say, listen, if you don't stop, then I'm going to have to report this to HR. So now you're giving them an option. Listen, we're going to keep this between us, or we're going to make this public. And if we make this public, you know there's going to be consequences. So if it goes to that next level, you have to tell the person, listen, this is going to go beyond us. I'm going to have to report this to HR. Okay? So now, let me address if it is someone who is in upper management, someone who's your immediate boss who is sexually harassing you. Okay? If you're just joining, this is Michelle Powell with Professional Manner, and you can find more information about my company on professionalmanner.com. I'm talking about establishing healthy boundaries in the workplace. We are on number 4 of 5 tips, and number 4 is sexual harassment. If you are being harassed by someone who has power over you because of their position, because of their authority in the workplace, in that work environment, it's a very delicate, difficult situation. I understand. What I would suggest to you is that you go behind closed doors if you feel safe enough to do that, or somewhere that you can speak quietly but still semi-public area, and you speak to that person. It doesn't matter if it's your boss or someone else higher up in the company who signs your checks. You still need to let them know that this is inappropriate. You are a professional. You are a person who deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. It does not matter what your position or your rank in that company. You deserve respect. So you need to say to that person, listen, when you say XYZ, that makes me feel very uncomfortable. It's a harassing statement. That word right there sends bells off in their mind. Oh goodness, she's going to claim, she's going to cry sexual harassment. Oh, please, let me do something about this. Now, they can be arrogant and say, oh, well, it's your word against mine. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. Or they might get nervous and say, oh, okay, let me just back off. Let me just leave her alone. But you need to say, I feel very uncomfortable and I feel harassed by your statements. I feel very uncomfortable when you stand too close to me. I feel very uncomfortable when you put your hand on on my back or on my shoulder, or certain things that you do. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I feel harassed. You have to say that. You talk about how you feel. Don't just point the finger, you're doing this. Because remember, that person has authority over you. So you talk from a position of, this is how it makes me feel. Now, that's step 1. If it continues with that person as well, or they threaten you, well, listen, I could have you out of here. Or if they're that bold, then you need to say, well, you know what, that's the chance I'm going to have to take, but I cannot continue to accept this from you. And you have to make that decision. I know I've spoken to single moms before who have been in that position where they feel like, if I say something, I'm going to lose this paycheck. I'm raising 3 kids. I can't lose my job. you can't lose your respect either. And you cannot put yourself in a position where it becomes unhealthy for you to go to work. You feel unsafe, you have knots in your stomach, you get headaches, you have all kinds of symptoms of stress. It's now a health risk to you. You must do something about it. Now, I can say more about this, and if you're interested in additional help and tips on that, again, I invite you to write to me if you want to share your personal story. If I can help you, I will. If I need to suggest more professional help on the lines of an attorney or a mediator, I will do so. You can send information to me through my website, professionalmanner.com. I do receive those emails. Go to the Contact Us button, leave your comments or questions, and I'll get back to you there. So, number 5 on setting healthy boundaries at work is actually the boundary that you need to establish for after work hours, your personal time. It's very tempting for us to continue to answer the phone, answer emails, answer text messages that are work related. However, when you clock out at 5, 6, 7, whatever time in the evening that you do, you're now on your personal time. Give yourself permission to have personal time. Now, unless you're in a job where you're on call and you have to keep that phone on, or you're working on a project that's on deadline and you're in management, someone may need to reach you, that's different. But in the regular routine of business, when you leave the office at 6 o'clock, you are not obligated. You are not obligated to respond to any more business emails, phone calls, etc. Now, if you choose to do so, that's up to you. But I'm trying to help you let yourself off the hook. Don't feel obligated to do it. If it's not deadline driven, and if it's not driven by your position of management where you have to be accessible, then give yourself permission to turn it off and tune into your family and your personal time. You must do that for yourself to have the balance. And if you don't do that, if people get used to being able to call you at 7 or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, they're going to continue to do that. They're going to send text messages because they know you're going to respond to them. Don't give them that permission. You have to establish the boundaries. Now, if you see an email that you want to respond to and you have the time to do so, that's fine. I would still suggest to you that you go ahead and send your reply, but then you have a delayed time on when you return that email. If it's late into the evening and you're just now seeing that and you know you need to catch up on some work, please don't send emails at 1 a.m. People can see that, okay? And they're going to think, oh, okay, you're still working at 1 o'clock in the morning, so tomorrow I'm going to send you an email at 10 o'clock and I expect a response, okay? So you don't want to do that to yourself. If you need to respond because you don't want to forget to respond, then go ahead and set that up in your draft, and then set up on your or click on your settings where you can have a delayed send, so that the recipient opens their email at 9 o'clock in the morning, because that's when you've scheduled it. Okay, so I'm hoping that this has been helpful to you. I don't want to keep you too long in the middle of your workday. I appreciate you tuning in, and those of you on replay, thank you, thank you, thank you. If this content has been good, has been meaningful and helpful to you, please tap the screen and share hearts. And also, let someone else know who may be struggling with one of these areas. Please swipe up on your Android or swipe left to right and click the share button so that others can get a chance to get this information. Again, if you want more of this content, then please also click the follow button. Now let me give you a preview of some of the other things I'll be talking about in future broadcasts. I'm going to talk about language that makes us sound unintelligent. Certain words in your vocabulary that you need to take out. All right? And then I'm going to also talk about conducting business over a meal. You need to have table manners. You need to understand that business etiquette includes social etiquette, and quite often you may have to take a client to lunch or to dinner. How do you appropriately bring up business at that time, and how do you engage in conversation, in small talk, and how do you manage yourself at the table? How do you keep from fighting over the check when it comes to the table. All those things. I'm going to talk about that. Conducting business over a meal. I will also address international travel etiquette. I will talk about office etiquette. There's lots more to unpack there. I just gave you just a little bit about establishing healthy boundaries at work, but that's just a snippet of office etiquette. I will also talk about business networking etiquette, some do's and don'ts. How many of you have seen people at networking events who look like blackjack dealers? They're passing out their cards like this. You know, every person that they meet, they barely have a conversation with. They just want to get that card in your hand. And what do? You get home, you look at all those cards and say, I don't even remember this person. Trash. All right, so I'm going to talk about business networking etiquette. And later this week, I will have my very first guest, Dr. Kathy Lettieri. She is an expert on conflict resolution. So stay tuned for that. Also later this week, I'm so excited, I will be spending a few days in Tampa with Lisa Sasevich. If you do not know this rock star, you need to get a clue. Lisa Sasevich, Sasevich. She is an all-star in sales. I will be attending her Speak to Sell bootcamp. If you are a professional speaker or want to be, if you are a trainer of any sort, you are in business making sales, you need to meet Lisa Sasevich. I'm going to be there for 3 days for her boot camp on Speak to Sell, and I will be bringing you live broadcasts from there. Don't know how much I'm going to share with you because you should have signed up for the boot camp, but I will give you some more tips from there. And hey, who knows, if we're lucky and we can steal her away for a few minutes, I'll try to get Lisa to say hi to you. All right, so let me wrap up by saying this. I'm on day 11 of my first 12 days on Periscope. If you like what you hear, please tap the screen for hearts. If you like the subject of business etiquette, please tap the screen for hearts. If you like what you've heard so far and you think others need to hear this, please swipe up and click the share button. I'm having so much fun with this. My 12 for 12 challenge was for my first 12 days on Periscope. I'm asking for 12,000 hearts. And for those of you who give the most hearts, my top 3 people, I will be making an announcement tomorrow of a special gift that I want to share with you. And I'm also going to have a surprise treat for you. You don't want to miss it tomorrow. That will be my broadcast. So I hope these tips today have been helpful. If you're just joining, I'm sorry you've missed it. Please watch the replay. We talked about establishing healthy boundaries in the workplace. I gave you 5. And very quickly, I'll just say the first one is not sharing too much. Number 2 was answering to rude and intrusive questions. Number 3 is protecting your personal time on your lunch break. Number 4 was dealing with sexual harassment. And number 5 is your personal time, protecting your personal time after hours. All right, that is my scope for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, I'm Michelle Powell with Professional Manner. You can find me on Twitter at ProManner. You can find me through my website, professionalmanner.com, and from there you can find me on every other social media platform. Thanks so much for the hearts. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.